in this lecture today we intend to talk about the feelings in relationship in detail, particularly the feeling of trust, which is the foundational value in relationship. So, let us look at it. So, yesterday we said that when we talk about harmony in family, that was the issue that we were talking about, then the main issue is that of relationship, right. And when you talk about relationship, there are 4 aspects which we need to understand about relationship. Number 1, the relationship is there and it is between one self and the other self, right. So, it is the self which is recognizing the relationship with another self and both of them are using the body as an instrument. So, this was number 1, the relationship is there and it is between one self and the other self. The second aspect was that there are feelings in relationship, and these feelings are in one self for the other self, right. So, the feeling of affection or feeling of love is there in one self for the other self. So, there are feelings in relationship in one self for the other self. The third point was that these feelings are definite, they can be recognized, and we saw that there are 9 feelings which are listed down here. So, these feelings are definite, right. These are the 9 feelings that we have been talking about yesterday, right. So, in relationship these feelings are there in this self, in one self for the other self, and they are definite, we can recognize them, understand them, and once we understand them and recognize them, these feelings are there in us, and with that clarity and with those feelings in us, we can ensure the fulfillment, right. So, fulfillment of these feelings and ultimately the evaluation of these feelings leads to mutual happiness. It leads to my happiness as well as the happiness of the other. So, if I have the feeling of respect in me for the other, I am in harmony within, therefore, I am in a state of happiness within, and when I express this feeling of respect to the other, this is naturally acceptable to him as well, and therefore, he is also in harmony within and therefore, in a state of happiness within, and therefore, it leads to my happiness as well as the happiness of the other. So, the fulfillment and the evaluation of the feelings, these 9 feelings which are shared in relationship leads to mutual happiness. So, these are the 4 aspects of relationship that we talked about, and we mentioned that these are the 9 feelings which are naturally acceptable to us, the feeling of trust, respect, affection and ultimately the love. These feelings are naturally acceptable to us, right. So, you can verify whether they are naturally acceptable to you or not, and when you share this feeling with the other, will it be naturally acceptable to the other or not. So, this was one thing that we talked about yesterday. We also made a mention that if you look at now relationship, the issue is the major issue is that of feeling and not of physical facility, right. So, in order to express these feelings in relationship, the role of physical facility is either not there or it is minimal, it is symbolic, except in the case of feeling of care, in response to which we need physical facility to ensure nurturing and protection of the body of my relative. So, with this background, what we intend to do today is to talk about each of these feelings one by one, so that we can understand them, we can recognize them, and ultimately we can have them these feelings in us. So, let us look at them one by one. So, let us talk about this feeling of trust first. So, if you look at the feeling of trust, the trust means to be assured, to be assured, that is what trust means. And if you look at the details of when do we feel assured, then we can see that when we have the clarity that the other wants to make me happy and prosperous, we feel assured of him, because ultimately as a human being our basic aspiration is happiness and prosperity and its continuity. So, if I am sure, if I am clear that the other person wants to make me happy and prosperous, I will feel assured of him. That is what is meant by having a feeling of trust. On the other hand, if I have a small doubt that the other person can make me unhappy or he wants to make me unhappy, I will not feel assured of him. I will have a feeling of fear, feeling of doubt, right, which is the feeling of mistrust. So, trust means to be assured, and I feel assured only when I am sure that the other wants to make me happy and prosperous. So, that is the meaning of trust. So, you can verify yourself whether this definition of trust holds good for you or it does not hold good for you. Right. We have already verified that we want to be happy and prosperous, that is our basic aspiration, right. And therefore, we would like to be assured that the other person wants to make me happy and prosperous. If that is the case, I feel assured of him, I have a feeling of trust. If there is a possibility of violation, I will have a doubt, right. I will have a fear from the other, which will express itself in the form of feeling of mistrust on the other. So, with this definition, now let us try to find out whether it is possible for me to have trust on the other or not. Right. Is it possible to have the feeling of trust on the other, or is it not possible to have the feeling of trust on the other? So, in order to find it out, let us look at some of these statements that we have made. So, let us look at this. The first one is the statement about your natural acceptance, about your desire which is based on natural acceptance, about your intention. Right. The second set of statement on the right side relate to your competence, your capability, we will come back to this. So, this is about your ability, right, that is your competence. So, we will ask these questions, set of questions about your natural acceptance and about the ability, about the competence. So, let us look at them one by one. So, let me ask this question: I want to make myself happy. Is this statement true for you? Is it naturally acceptable to you? Ask this question to yourself, whether this statement is true for you or not true for you. What is your natural acceptance to make yourself happy and happy? Happy, right? So, there is a tick mark. Then let us look at the next statement: I want to make the other happy. So, what would be your natural acceptance to make others happy or unhappy? So, happy, right. Then third statement, the other wants to make herself or himself happy. Okay. Tick mark or question mark? The other wants to make himself or herself happy or unhappy? Happy, right. So, tick mark. The fourth statement, the other wants to make me happy. So, do I put a tick mark or a question mark? Question mark, right. Yeah, that is the problem. That is where the doubt comes, that is where the mistrust comes. Right. So, now you can see all these questions were asked regarding your natural acceptance, regarding your intention, regarding what is naturally acceptable to you. Right. Now, let us look at the statements which are based on your ability, right, and ask the same set of questions, right. So, look at your ability part. Statement number 1b, I am able to make myself always happy. Yes, tick mark or question mark? Are you able to make yourself happy always? No, right. So, there is a question mark right here. So, you can see, as far as your intention is concerned, as far as your natural acceptance is concerned, you want to be happy, always. But when it comes to the realization of this this natural acceptance, this intention, right, you find it difficult, right. Sometime you are able to make yourself happy, sometime you are not able to make yourself happy, and therefore, there is a question mark on this right in the beginning. Right. So, I am able to make myself always happy, there is a question mark. You can't say with confidence that yes, I am always able to make myself happy. You can of course say that I always want to make myself happy. So, as far as intention is concerned, as far as natural acceptance is concerned, right, it is always there, you know. So, there is a tick mark, but when it comes to the competence, there is a question mark, because I am not able to make myself happy all the time, right. I am not able to ensure that. So, there is a question mark right from the beginning, first statement, you know, as far as the capability is concerned, as far as the competence is concerned. Then 2b, I am able to make the other always happy, tick mark or question mark. So, question mark again, right. Good. The third statement, the other is able to make herself or himself always happy. So, we are not clear, right. So, there is a question mark, not sure. The fourth one, the other is able to make me always happy. The other is able to make me always happy, tick mark or question mark, double question mark, right. Yes, double question mark, and this turns out to be the same response, you know, in all the workshops that we conduct, right. As far as the statement about the intention is concerned, the natural acceptance is concerned, there is a tick mark in 1a, 2a and 3a, but there is a question mark in 4a. When we talk about the competence, about the ability, there is a question mark right from the beginning. So, 1b there is a question mark, 2b there is question mark, 3b is also question mark, 4b is double question mark. So, that is the response regarding the competence. Now, it is very interesting, you know, if you look at this response and try to analyze, many things will get clarified, right. Many things will get clarified. Number one, if you look at the whole situation, you know, your response to these statements about your natural acceptance, the intention, and about your competence, the capability, right. What you find that when you evaluate yourself, which you keep doing anyway, you evaluate yourself on the basis of your intention, on the basis of your natural acceptance. Therefore, you think that you are a right person, right, your intentions are good, right, your intentions are good, therefore, you are good. Can you see that? So, when you are evaluating yourself, you are evaluating yourself on the basis of this. I want to make myself happy, I want to make others happy, that is my natural acceptance, that is my intention, therefore, I am a good person. But when you evaluate the other, you evaluate him on the basis of his competence, right. So, you are evaluating him on the basis of his competence, right. And you find that he is not able to make you happy all the time, right. Many times or most of the time he ends up making you unhappy, therefore, he is lacking competence, right. Therefore, you think that he wants to make you unhappy, and therefore, you have the doubt on the intention of the other, right. So, when you are evaluating yourself, you are evaluating yourself on the basis of your intention, but when you are evaluating the other, you are evaluating him on the basis of his competence, right. And when you find that the competence is missing, you have the doubt, right. But this doubt on competence does not remain limited to the doubt on competence. you start concluding about his intention on the basis of his state of the competence. So, you start doubting his intention, right. That is how things go. If you look at this example, right, if a glass breaks, which keeps happening, right. So, if it is a made of some fragile thing, it is likely to break, right. So, if the glass breaks, there are two interpretations possible. If the glass is broken, right, and you are the one who is involved in it, then your interpretation is different. If the glass is broken and the other person is involved in it, your interpretation is very different. So, let us look at this. If it is about the other, then you say the other broke a glass, right. But if you are involved, then you say the glass broke by accident. So, when it breaks by you, your involvement, you say that it broke by accident. So, your intention was not there, right, it happened by accident. But if same thing happens by the other person, you do not say the same thing, right, you do not say that it broke by accident, you say that he broke the glass, which means he had the intention to break the glass. So, you start doubting the intention of the other, and then it makes lot of difference, right. You can see that as far as your performance is concerned, your action is concerned, right, even if you make the same mistake 100 times, I never doubt my intention, I make mistakes by accident, I have a feeling I am special, I reinforce I am good, I do not make effort to improve upon my competence. This is what happens. So, same incident has taken place, the glass is broke, right, but the interpretations are different, right. The judgment which is made on the basis of breaking of the glass is different, right. If I am making the same mistake, right, even 100 times, I never doubt my intention, right. I continue to assume that I make mistakes only by accident, not that I wanted to make this mistake, but it happened by accident, right. And if this is the case, then I continue to feel that I am good because my intentions are good, right. And this lack of competence is because of this accident taking place, therefore, I am not making effort to improve upon my competence. So, that is where I am. On the other hand, if this glass broke by somebody else, then my observation is that he broke the glass. That means, I am doubting his intention on the basis of what has happened, right. I am not able to see his intention, right, which is to be happy and make others happy, right. So, if the glass is broken, it is not because he wanted to break the glass, right, but it is because of some accident or by lack of his competence. But what I do is I start doubting his intention, that is number 1. Number 2, I keep making this observation that he makes mistakes intentionally, right. And if I have this doubt on his intention, then I have a feeling of opposition, and if I have this feeling of opposition, I tend to get irritated, I tend to get angry and so on. And if I do this, right, I reinforce the belief that the other is bad and he cannot improve. So, this is what is happening, right. So, when I am evaluating myself, I am evaluating myself on the basis of my intention, therefore, I think that I am good. If there is a mistake, it is by accident, not that I intended to do it. But on the other hand, when I am evaluating the other, I am evaluating him on the basis of his competence, right. And when I find that his competence is missing, right, I conclude that his intentions are wrong. and therefore he is a bad person, right. This is what we keep doing in our day to day living in relationship, right. And you can find out that this doubt on intention is a major reason for problems in relationship. Right. So, this doubt on intention, okay, is a major problem, source of problem in relationship in our day to day living together as human beings. So, this is the common mistake. We said I evaluate myself on the basis of my intention and I evaluate the other on the basis of his competence, and if this happens I doubt their intention, I assure their lack of competence, I assume their lack of competence to be their lack of intention, and I feel opposed to him, the other, I get irritated, I get angry. And if this happens, I may not speak to the other for days, for weeks, right. I might even break up the relationship, right. And if you look back, you will find that you have lost many friends, many relatives, right, because of this, right, because of this, right. On the other hand, if I can see that the intention of the other is same as my intention, right, he might be lacking competence, then the response will be very different, right. I remember one of the example when we were conducting this similar workshop in triple IT, one of the students, his name was Suman, he was going through this workshop, and when this discussion on relationship was going on, particularly the discussion on trust was going on, right. Next day he came back and he was sharing his experience. He said, yesterday evening when I was going to the mess, I saw my friend, right, and he was rushing towards the mess, and I wished him, but he did not respond, he did not even look at me, right, and I was quite hurt and unhappy about it, right. But then the second thought, I thought maybe his intentions are not wrong, but he has some problem, right. So, it is a problem of competence, not the intention, okay. So, I should not doubt his intention on the basis of what he has done, not responding to my wish. So, next day when I met him, I asked him what happened, yesterday I wished you and you were rushing towards the mess and you did not even look at me, you did not respond, right. He said, oh yes, I had lost my purse in the mess. So, when he went for the dinner, he left his purse there, and when he went to the room, he realized that the purse is not there and it is left in the mess. So, he was rushing towards it. So, he was so much in a hurry and so much worked up that he did not even see him wishing, right. So, this Suman was telling that if only I had not gone through this difference between intention and competence, and if I had doubted his intention, I would have lost that friend, we would not have talked for days, okay, or we would not have talked at all. So, such simple thing may cause break of relationship or create so much of problem, so much of tension in relationship, right. So, this is the common mistake that we make in relationship today, that on the basis of lack of competence we conclude about the lack of intention of the other, and once we have doubt on intention of the other, right, instead of accepting him as a relative, right, we think in terms of opposition, and when we think in terms of opposition, we have this feeling of irritation and anger and so on, right. So, this is something which you can kind of check in your day to day interaction with people to whom you are related, right. So, every now and then this keeps happening, right. very small kind of incidents like this keeps creating whole lot of problems in relationship. Okay. I keep quoting this another example, that one of my uncle, okay, he met an heart attack, and when he came back from the hospital I went to see him, and then I was asking him, what happened uncle, we are very close. So, I was just asking him what happened, and then he said, oh, your auntie, sometimes she says such things which is very hurting, right. So, it so happened that a day before somebody, one of his friend, the uncle's friend came from Calcutta, and he wanted some help, some financial help, right, of course huge amount, and this uncle finally decided to extend that help to him. But when he went back, right, this auntie was quite unhappy about it, and she said certain things, in response or reaction to her this thing, being unhappy about helping this friend, and what he said seems to be so hurting for the uncle that he met an heart attack. So, I just asking him, uncle, tell me, what do you think? You got hurt because of the words that she said, or because of the fact that you concluded from what she said that she wants to hurt you, right. He said because of the words, right. I said, okay, let me ask another question. I said, if the same words were uttered by someone whom you knew was mad, will you get hurt? He said no. I said, okay, let me ask this question again, that were you hurt by the words that she said, or because you started doubting her intention, right, on the basis of what she said, and therefore you had a feeling of opposition. He was silent for a few minutes, and then he said, yes, what you are saying is making sense, right. So, this is what is happening, this uncle and auntie living together for 50 years, right, very respected family in Kanpur, okay. But they still have doubt on intention of each other, and such small incidents can cause that doubt on intention. With that doubt on intention, there is a feeling of opposition, with that feeling of opposition there is a hurt, and it might even damage to the extent of meeting a heart attack, right. And this is what keeps happening. I mean, if you look at the interaction between the husband and wife, most of the time you find they talk as if they are fighting, because the doubt on intention is there, right, and therefore that feeling of opposition is there, and therefore there is so much of irritation and anger. So, this you can start observing in your day to day interaction with your friends, with your relatives, with your kind of co-workers. So, this generally is the case, that I evaluate myself on the basis of my intention, and therefore, I think that I am good. I evaluate the other on the basis of the intention of on the basis of the competence of the other, which he is missing, and therefore, I start the doubting the intention of the other, and therefore, I keep thinking that he is bad. Now, if you really try to look at the both your intention as well as your competence, and similarly the intention and competence of the other person, then things will change, right, things will change significantly. But before that, let us ask this question to ourselves, right. If you have unconditional continuous trust on intention, the natural acceptance of the other, and if the other is lacking competence, what will you do? There are 4 choices that we have written here. One is try to improve upon his competence, 2 get irritated, 3 get angry, 4 have a feeling of opposition. So, if you have unconditional continuous trust on intention of the other, which one will you do? A, B, C or D? A, B, C or D? Obviously A, right. So, if there is trust on intention, this is the response. So, if I have trust on intention of the other, and if I find that the other is missing competence, right, then I will try to improve upon his competence, right. On the other hand, if I have doubt on intention of the other, then B, C and D will be the response, right. I will get irritated, or I will get angry, or I will have the feeling of opposition, right. So, this is the reaction out of my doubt on intention of the other. The action may be same, right. If I have trust on intention, I will respond in terms of trying to improve upon the competence of the other. On the other hand, if there is doubt on intention, then I will react in terms of getting irritated or getting angry or having feeling of opposition. Right. Now, with this indicator, let us ask this question to ourselves: how many persons do have trust on intention, on natural acceptance, which is unconditional and continuous? How many people you have trust on intention, which is unconditional, continuous? Find out, very interesting, This is an indicator of how much you have understood the relationship, right. How much you have trust in relationship, right. Very fundamental question, right. How many people you have trust on intention, on natural acceptance, which is unconditional and continuous. And in order to check this, find out how many people are there with whom you do not get irritated, you do not get angry, you do not have the feeling of opposition, even if they keep committing mistakes, right, one time or many times, very recurrently. How many people are there with whom you do not get irritated or get angry or have a feeling of opposition? Find out how many. Hardly any, right? Yeah, hardly any, right. Find out if even if there is one. So, if you do this, investigation into yourself and find out how many people are there such like this will tell you exactly how well you have been able to understand the relationship, right. How well you have trust on intention of the other, right. How well you have been able to accept the other as being related to you, because the moment there is doubt on intention of the other, right, instead of feeling related to the other, you feel opposed to the other, right. And if you feel related to the other on the basis of that trust, is it continuous, is it unconditional, or it keeps fluctuating? So, this is a very important question to ask, right. This will exactly tell you your status of understanding of relationship, your status of having this fundamental feeling of trust, right, and therefore, how well you are able to accept and fulfill your relationship. So, keep asking this question every time, because very fundamental issue is it is the very fundamental issue which relates to relationship. Okay. So, what we are saying is that this is fundamental, this trust, the feeling of trust and trust on intention is fundamental, right. This trust on intention is foundation of relationship, right, very important. This is the foundation of relationship. That is why we are calling trust as foundational value, right. So, with this analysis you can get an idea of the state of your understanding about relationship, right, and you can also see that when it comes to unconditional continuous feeling, this is born out of your understanding of the feeling, right, and not out of the incidents, right. If you look at the incidents which are taking place in life in relation to someone, right, you will see a lot of fluctuations, because depending upon whether the other person has competence in relation to that activity or not, right, he will be able to fulfill relationship or he may not be able to fulfill relationship, right. That depends upon his competence, and therefore, the continuity of any feeling which is based on these incidents will not be there. On the other hand, when I am able to understand the intention of the other on the basis of my self verification, my natural acceptance, right, I can see that these feelings are there, right, unconditional, right, and then we can have trust on intention. Therefore, these feelings can be there which is unconditional, continuous. So, what we are saying that the feelings born out of understanding can be definite, can be unconditional, can be continuous, and not the feelings which are based on incidents, right. This is another major mistake that we keep making today, that we try to found our feelings, our relationship on the basis of the incidents, right, which does not work, because these incidents depend on the competence, my competence as well as the competence of the other, which may be fluctuating, and therefore, it might lead to the lack of fulfillment in relationship, right. So, the feelings which are born out of understanding and not just the incidents can have the continuity, can have the unconditional thing definite, and not based on incidents. Good. So, with all these analysis, now we can look back at these 4 statements again and find out whether there will be a question mark or a tick mark in 4a. So, let me read it again. We are saying trust is to have the clarity that the other intends to make me happy, right. So, let us visit this 1a, 2a, 3a, 4a. The 4a says the other wants to make me happy, right. What do you think now? What is the natural acceptance of the other? To be happy and make others happy, or to be happy and make others unhappy? So, as far as the intention is concerned, as far as the natural acceptance is concerned, right, he wants to be happy and make others happy. That would be the natural observation. So, this is interesting, right, that any person and every person wants to be happy and make others happy as far as the natural acceptance is concerned, and that is what we are calling as intention, right. When it comes to competence, he may not have the competence to make himself happy and make others happy. So, he has the intention, but he may be lacking in competence, but we need to have this clarity in ourselves. And what we are saying that in order to have this clarity, okay, what we really need to explore and investigate and find out is 1a and 2a. So, can I investigate within myself and find out whether I want to be happy myself, whether I want to make others happy, what is my natural acceptance? So, that we can see that I want to be happy and make others happy, that is my natural acceptance. So, 1a and 2a is true, and now I can conclude that the other person is like me, therefore, he also wants to be happy and make others happy. This we can directly verify from the other, but from our own observation about our own natural acceptance, we can conclude about the natural acceptance of the other. So, basically this 3a and 4a, right, this 3a is reflection of 1a when I am looking from the other side, and 4a is also a reflection of 2a, right. Therefore, I can see that if 2a is correct, is tick mark, then 4a will also be a tick mark. So, this is the crux, that if I can evaluate myself on the basis of my intention and I can evaluate the other on the basis of his intention, then I will have trust on intention of everybody. So, I will repeat again, if I can evaluate myself on the basis of my intention and if I can evaluate the other on the basis of his competence, then I will have trust on intention of everybody, because deep down now I can see that everybody wants to be happy and make others happy, that is his natural acceptance, right. So, are we able to see this? If we are able to see this, we will have trust on intention of everybody. And now when it comes to making a program with him, we will evaluate our own competence and we will evaluate the competence of the other and thereby make the program. So, let me repeat this. As far as trust on intention is concerned, I will have trust on intention of everybody, right. As far as making program is concerned, I will make the program on the basis of evaluation of my own competence and the competence of the other, right. But I will have trust on intention, okay, which is conditional, unconditional, which is continuous for everyone. And now, if you see the same thing, that same incident taking place, the glass breaking, right. Now, the whole interpretation will change. If I have the trust on intention of the other and I can evaluate both the intention and competence of myself as well as the other, then the interpretation of the same incident will change significantly, right. So, now about the other, I will be able to say that the glass broke by accident. So, for the other as well as myself, I can see that the glass broke by accident. I did not have the intention, he also did not have the intention, because of lack of competence or by some accident, okay, the glass has broken. Now, I can see that when I make a mistake even once, I am clear about my intention. I know the mistake is due to lack of competence, not a lack of intention, and therefore, I make effort to improve upon my competence, right. That is, I am willing to learn. When I see the same incident happening with the other, right, so even if the other makes the same mistake 100 times, I am clear about his intention, number 1. Number 2, I know the mistake is due to lack of competence, not a lack of intention. I make effort to help improve his competence with a feeling of affection, and this is important, right, that I am trying to improve upon his competence, trying to help improve upon his competence with a feeling of affection, right. And when I am doing this with a feeling of affection, I can see that he may have difficulty understanding and also I may have difficulty in explaining. So, when I am trying to explain and he is not able to understand, I do not doubt his intention that he does not want to understand, but I can see that he is finding difficult to understand because of lack of his competence, and it might also happen that I am not able to explain properly, right, because of lack of my competence. And if I can see that, I will try to improve upon my competence and I will try to improve upon the competence of the other. So, with this background, now we can see the trust, which is the foundation of relationship. Okay. If I have the trust on intention of the other, I feel related to the other, right. So, if there is a tick mark here, I have trust on intention of the other, and when I have trust on intention of the other, I feel related to the other, right. and when I am making a program with the other, I am evaluating his competence as well as my competence, right, and I make the program in accordance with our mutual competence. So, what we are saying is that as long as acceptance of relationship is concerned, it will be unconditional, it will be definite, right. I will have trust on intention of the other, and therefore, I will feel related to the other, therefore, I will treat the other as my relative. But when it comes to making a program with him, I will evaluate my own competence, I will evaluate his competence, and on the basis of this mutual competence, I will make a program with him, right. This is very important. Okay. This is very important, because what generally happens is either we start doubting the intention of the other, therefore, we do not feel related to the other, or we may feel even opposed to the other, or on the other hand, when we trust on intention of the other, right, we forget to evaluate the competence while making the program. So, we start making the program without evaluating my own competence and the competence of the other on the basis of trust on intention, which might have problem. Right. So, two things we are saying. Number one, we are saying with right understanding, with right evaluation of the natural acceptance of the human being, I can see that every human being has a natural acceptance to be happy and make others happy. Therefore, we can have trust on intention of everybody, and therefore, we can feel related to everyone. But when it comes to making a program with him, right, I need to evaluate both. I need to evaluate my own competence, and I need to evaluate the competence of the other, and depending upon that competence of the two, right, we need to make a program. If we do that, right, it is likely to be successful. It is likely to be successful. On the other hand, if we have trust on intention and we are not evaluating the mutual competence and we are making the program, it may fail, right, it may have problem. So, take an example, like when I am interacting with you in this workshop, okay, I know that every one of us wants to understand what is right and do what is right, and we also have the necessary kind of potential, right, to understand what is right. But then it is not necessary that every one of us has the competence, right, that is we have understood right, what is right. So, if that is the case, and when I am making a program with you, I have trust on intention of everyone sitting here, and even those who are not sitting here, that everybody wants to understand what is right and do what is right, and they have the possibility of understanding what is right. When I am making the program with you, I am evaluating my competence and I am evaluating your competence. So, for example, when I decided to kind of speak in English, right, use this English as a medium of instruction, I evaluated my competence whether I can speak English or not. Then I evaluated your competence whether you can understand English or not, right, and on the basis of evaluation of this competence, my own competence and your competence, we decided to use English as a medium of communication. If I do not do this, right, and if I start speaking in a language which you cannot understand because you do not have the competence, then I will not be able to communicate, and when not able to communicate, I will conclude that you do not want to communicate, you do not want to pay attention, you do not want to listen, right, and all that. So, when it comes to trust on intention, it is unconditional, right, but when it comes to making a program, right, I have to evaluate my competence and I have to evaluate your competence, and on the basis of the two, I have to make a program. I remember when we were conducting this workshop in IIT, in IIIT Hyderabad for the students, okay, first time we had made different groups, one for English, one for Hindi, and those who had the background of Telugu, we thought that they know English, so two groups in English. And when we conducted the first workshop for them, By the 5th day we realize that they are not able to get anything, okay. And the reason is that they do not know either Hindi or English, they know Telugu and I did not know Telugu, right. So, the basic intention was there to understand, okay, on their part, but because of the lack of competence of understanding English, they were not able to follow. Because of lack of competence on my part to explain it in Telugu, right, they were not able to follow. So, then we worked out, how to go about it. I do not have that competence of Telugu and they do not have the competence of English, then what to do, right. And finally, the solution was that we asked one of the professor who have been sitting in this workshop, and who knew English, Hindi as well as Telugu, because he is from Hyderabad, that we asked him to do the summing up, after every session of 1.5 an hour session, do the summing up for 20 minutes. And next time when we had this workshop for the second group, we did this, we tried this and it worked. So, if the trust on intention is there, we will try to work out, the competence, either we improve upon the competence or we involve somebody who has the competence, and who can be a help in the process. So, if you look at that, right, what will happen is that I am consistently making effort to learn to improve my competence, that is one thing, right. If the other is lacking in competence, then I am committed to help the other to improve the competence without becoming all that irritated, angry, and all that. So, if that trust on intention is there, I will accept him as being related to the other. When I am making a program with him, I will evaluate my competence, I will evaluate his competence, and if the competence is lacking, I will try to improve upon my competence, as well as I will try to help the other to improve upon his competence, and this will be an ongoing process. So, what we are saying that the trust on intention is the starting point for mutual development, right. That is where the relationship begins, right, that is where the relationship begins. If we do not have that trust on intention, right, and we have doubt on intention, we have a feeling of opposition rather than a feeling of being related to the other. So, it is in that sense we are saying that trust on intention is the foundation of relationship. So, let me just sum up what we have been saying. With trust on intention, I feel related to the other. With this trust on intention, when I make a program with the other, I evaluate his competence as well as my competence. I make the program in accordance with our current mutual competence. I am consistently making effort to improve my competence. If the other is lacking in competence, I am committed to help the other to improve his competence without becoming irritated and so on, right. Trust is founded on understanding, not on experience of events. This we have already talked about, that all these feelings including the trust is founded on understanding of the feeling, right, and not just the events. Okay. The trust is founded on the clarity that human being is coexistence of self and body, right. The self is endowed with natural acceptance and the natural acceptance is for being happy and making others happy. So, if these three clarity is there, that the human being is coexistence of self and body, the self is endowed with natural acceptance, that we have tried to verify, and this natural acceptance is for being happy and making others happy, right. If all these three clarity is there, then we will have trust on intention of everybody, right. Of course, this is something which you have to keep asking yourself, what is the role of physical facility in having the feeling of trust and in expressing the feeling of trust, right. This every time we will ask, we talk about any feeling, we will ask this question again and again. So, the sum up, trust is to have the clarity that the other wants to make me happy and prosperous, it is the foundation of relationship. If I have trust on intention, I feel related to the other, I make program with the other based on right evaluation of the mutual competence. In case the other is lacking in competence, I make the effort to assure the other, I make effort to improve upon the competence, once he is assured in relationship. If I am lacking competence, I become ready to take help from the other to improve upon his competence. That is how things will go in the right way, right. On the other hand, if I have doubt on intention, right. I evaluate the other on the basis of his competence and assume the lack of competence to be the lack of intention, and thus feel opposed to him, right. So, that is what one thing that happens. The feeling of opposition shows up, in many ways, as irritation, as anger, right, and ultimately it may lead to even fighting, struggle and war, and this is what is happening all around in the family, in the society, in the nation, and internationally. That we start with doubting the intention of the other, therefore we have the feeling of opposition, therefore we start with irritation and anger and so on, and then go on fighting and struggling, and finally we end up with war. So, that is where we are. So, let me just repeat this homework again for you to reflect upon. Number 1, find out how many persons do you have trust on intention which is unconditional continuous. Number 2, can you see the problems in relationship has to do more with the understanding of relationship and the understanding of feelings in relationship rather than the physical facility. 3, can you observe your feelings, the feeling of opposition or irritation or anger, right, which you have for other, and is it based on the doubt and intention of the other. 4th, can you see your own natural acceptance very clearly, and can you see that it is unconditional, continuous. This will help you to see that the natural acceptance of the other or the intention of the other is also unconditional and continuous. Observe this. If there are questions, we will take it up. Good. Thank you very much.